Good afternoon and welcome everyone to this Experian Marketing Services webinar. My name is James Murray. I'm the Digital Insight Manager for Experian Marketing Services, and today we're going to be talking through some of the key points of getting ready for Christmas and making sure that for all of your various sort of digital strategy points that you can be as sort of advanced in your knowledge as possible to make sure that you're getting the best out of your Christmas strategies. Today, apologies first of all for the rather poor puns, but we are going to take you through sort of quickly who we are, what happened in Christmas last year, as sort of a bit of a sort of a summary on what was big about Christmas 2011, and then sort of what we can expect really from Christmas this year and what are going to be sort of the top sort of trends and days to really sort of jump on. And then a final sort of few stats about what you can expect for Christmas 2012. So very quickly, sort of who are we and sort of why are we doing this? I think most of you hopefully on the webinar will have had some sort of contact with Experian Marketing Services already, but for those of you who haven't, you might be wondering sort of why are we sort of doing this webinar. Experian, if you've heard of them in the sort of the wider context, you'll probably know them as a financial services company, and so you might think, you know, us commenting on the retail industry is a bit of a sort of a disconnect or an error there. But the reality is that the marketing services part, and in particular sort of the digital aspect of that, we have an extraordinary amount of expertise in retail and in this area, and so the whole point of the digital company is it brings together expertise across lots of different platforms. So for email and mobile, we've got Experian Cheesemail. For display advertising, we've got Experian Digital Advertising Services. Experian Hitwise is our internet insight and sort of search marketing capability, and Experian Technolightment is our social media capability. And as I said, that gives us a sort of a phenomenal amount of data, but also a huge amount of insight into how consumers are behaving. And so really what we're going to go through today, we're going to go through some of the sort of the key things which happened last year, and then how you can learn from the observed trends and observed behaviors from last year to predict what's going to happen this year. And as I said, the beauty of the Experian products is that because we've got access to email and search and social, it's not just one sort of channel of insight, it's across all of your sort of multi-channel marketing, and also we're going to be having a look at some of the offline trends as well as the online trends. And so really that enables us to give us quite a sort of a competitive advantage against other people, because the level of data and the level of insight that we can provide is really quite extraordinary, and we're going to share some of those insights with you in the next sort of half an hour or so. So first off, let's tell you what happened this Christmas, or rather just the Christmas which happened. So for Christmas 2011, we saw a 4.8% increase in overall visits going to online retail websites, and that translates to about 100 million additional visits, or rather 100 million more visits than we saw in sort of December 2010. So the online retail space is definitely getting bigger. It's definitely increasing in its range and its reach, and people are shopping a lot more online to do their Christmas buying. We talked about being able to understand what happened last year to predict what happened in the coming year, and so this was the first year really that we were able to be pretty sort of accurate with our estimates, and so comparing sort of 2010 with 2011, before Christmas 2011 we looked back at what happened in 2010, and we estimated that there were going to be 350 million hours spent shopping in the UK alone in December, so around sort of the Christmas shopping period. And we were sort of quite pleased when we looked at the actual data after the event, that there were 343 million hours were actually spent shopping online. and so that was a sort of a good benchmark. Even sort of to take that to the next level, we thought and we estimated that there'd be 2.1 billion visits online going to retail websites during December, during the Christmas period. And in actual fact, when we looked at the data, it was 2.18 billion visits happened. So it's even sort of slightly above our estimations of what we thought was going to happen. But I think what this really shows is that we have developed this expertise in being able to look at the past trends to anticipate what's going to happen. And because December and because Christmas in particular is quite a sort of a predictable seasonal curve, there's lots of things which you can anticipate happening, and we can make sure that we can share some of those insights with you to make sure that you're getting the sort of the greatest return on your efforts in that very key period. So one of the things that we wanted to have a look at is, in particular, sort of how visits change over the sort of the month of December, and what are the sort of the key moments. So for 2011, Cyber Monday is always sort of one of the biggest days of the year. In fact, it's the biggest pre-Christmas shopping day. There was 84.6 million visits going to retail websites on Cyber Monday this Christmas just gone, and so that was the sort of Cyber Monday. If you didn't know, is the first Monday of December, and that was up 18% year on year compared with the sort of the 2010 visits. Then you'll see that as the weeks go on, the visits sort of slowly drop off, although there's always sort of spikes on Mondays. And that's basically as we get closer and closer to Christmas, there's less chance for people to order online and ensure that the presents and gifts that they buy will be delivered in time for Christmas. And then there's a big spike after in the sort of post-Christmas. So on Boxing Day was the biggest day we've ever seen for online retail visits, 96.2 million visits on Boxing Day, 19.5% up, so nearly a fifth up on the visits that we saw in 2010. And also, sort of almost as a sort of a knock-on effect of that, the 27th of December this year, more visits than any other shopping day of 2010, apart from, of course, Boxing Day itself. So a hugely sort of successful period for Christmas 2011, and we think that that's only going to increase as more people start shopping online. But it's the sort of the trends of when they're going to be shopping online that's the sort of the key thing to take away from that. One of the other interesting things that we've observed is that although visits are going up, the amount of time that people are spending on individual shopping sites is going down. So Sundays typically are the day when people are spending the most time shopping on average. So, but that goes down as we get closer and closer to Christmas. So essentially, the people who are well organized, the sort of people who are shopping right at the beginning of December, when they've got more time to do browsing, they can spend over sort of 10.5 minutes on a website looking and browsing for the things which they want to buy. As we get closer to Christmas, that tends to decrease, and so you can see by the time we get to sort of Christmas Day itself, actually visits have dropped, or rather the time that people are spending on visits has dropped to sort of 8 minutes and 5 seconds. But overall, if we take December as a whole, the amount of time that people are spending on retail websites has decreased by about sort of 40 seconds or so. Now, that might not sound like much, but if you take into account, as we said, there's 2.1 billion visits, and all of the time which people spend on sites, the decrease is showing that actually what people are doing, they have less time overall to really investigate what's going on. If they can't find something on your website which they really want, or find the thing which is most relevant to them, they're going to move on and they're going to go somewhere else. And so being able to make sure that you can capture customers at the right moment, at the right time, and deliver them something which is relevant to them is something which is going to become increasingly important, and especially this year for this Christmas, being able, as people have less time to shop, but they're making more visits overall. They're dashing around, they're comparing prices. That's going to be one of the key things, is to make sure that they stay on your website. So I mentioned that we have the ability, as being part of Experian, to show the online and then the offline traffic and how those two compare. And there's some really sort of interesting trends emerge here. So here we've got the Hitwise data in red, which shows you the online traffic, and then we've got the Experian footfall data, which is the offline traffic going to high streets and some of the big sort of shopping centres like Bluewater and the Trafford Centre and stuff like that. So you can see in the run-up to Christmas that there are sort of very clearly defined peaks. So for the blue, for the offline traffic, people going into the high street, those peaks are always on Saturdays. That also corresponds with the lowest day for traffic for online shopping. That kind of makes sense, because if you're going to do your Christmas shopping on the high street, you're not necessarily going to go online to do that. The biggest days in the run-up to Christmas is always Mondays for online shopping, and in particular that sort of comes to a sort of a head at Cyber Monday. As we said, it's the first Monday of December. So you can see that basically online traffic is increasing all the way up to Cyber Monday, and one of the things that we're going to be touching on later, particularly from an email perspective, is getting in there in the sort of the early time in November is a really powerful way to make sure that you're capturing customers' attention at the right time and pushing them towards the Cyber Monday push. Then, as we sort of said, as we get closer and closer to Christmas Day, as people get more worried about the fact that they don't necessarily have the time to order something online and get it delivered in time for Christmas Eve, you can see that the traffic starts to drop off slightly for the online piece, but then there's a corresponding spike for people going into the high street. So that's the sort of the lazy shoppers, people like myself, who don't have very much time perhaps, or can't get themselves organized to shop online, so then they're doing the sort of the last minute mad dash for Christmas shopping. And so we always see that sort of there's a last Saturday rush, the last Saturday before Christmas itself, where people are panic buying on the high street. And then you see this sort of this second pink spike here, that's the Boxing Day time for the biggest day for online retail. Part of the reason for that is that, of course, once people have got their gifts from Christmas, they want to, sometimes they'll, if they've got a PlayStation, they'll want to buy an accessory, maybe a new controller or a game, or if they've got a new iPod, they'll want to go online to download songs for that. So there's a lot of accessory shopping, or they want to have a look to take gifts back, which they're perhaps not happy with, exchange them on Amazon, spend vouchers, spend Christmas money, which they've got. And of course, they're also looking ahead to the post-Christmas sales, which we'll talk about a little bit more detail in a couple of slides' time. And one of the other things that we've had sort of noticed is that the gap between sort of multi-channel and online-only retailers is narrowing. So just to sort of be clear on our sort of definitions, when we're talking about multi-channel retailers, we're talking about people who have the sort of the bricks and mortar shops on the high street, but they also have an online presence, so someone like John Lewis or Debenhams, and then online only is sort of fairly self-explanatory. That's the people who don't have a high street presence, people like Amazon, Play, and ASOS. So what we're seeing this year is that as we get the sort of the early Christmas shopping and people who are doing that all around Cyber Monday and the sort of early December shopping, the gap between multi-channel and online only is getting actually much narrower and much closer. But in the sort of the post-Christmas shopping around Boxing Day, that's really the domain where the multi-channel retailers excel. So you can see there is still a spike there for the online-only retailers, but it's the multi-channel retailers which get the majority of the traffic around that time. And that's essentially a result and a product of the fact that to post-Christmas sales, post-Christmas shopping, sales in particular, it's quite difficult to recreate that effect of being able to sort of go in, tangibly sort of feel an item, if you imagine sort of the big rushes that you have in particular for things like in the fashion retail industry, so for people like Next, people want to be able to go through the store, go through all the bargains and actually be able to tangibly touch things and try them on and then get a bargain. It's quite difficult to recreate that effect online, and so that's why, although there is a sort of noticeable spike, it's not nearly as sort of prominent as it is for the multi-channel retailers. One of the things that we've done here is have a look at how traffic is changing overall when we're talking about where are visits coming from when they're going to retail websites, and how that's changed for December 2011 versus 2010. And some of the key things to sort of point out here is that search is really growing as a driver of traffic to the retail industry. So more people are using search engines in order to navigate the web, in order to get to where they want to go. And so this December, 42% of all traffic, going to online retailers came from a search engine. And we think that that's something which is really, again, sort of looking at the way that search is growing online this year, that's something which is definitely going to, again, sort of increase for Christmas this year. The other thing that I've highlighted here is that shopping websites, so visits from other retailers, are also growing. And again, that sort of taps back into what I was saying about the fact that the amount of time that people are spending on sites is going down, but the visits are going up. And what this shows is that there's a lot of visits between competitors, of people are comparing prices. They want to find the best deals possible. And so the amount of visits between retailers is also increasing. Another two sort of interesting ones to point out, visits from the entertainment category, and so that's a lot of video game sites and also video sites like BBC iPlayer, ITV Player, and also YouTube are increasing, and we'll talk about that in a couple of moments. And one of the sort of perhaps the slightly worrying things is that email is dropping off and has become sort of less significant as a channel than it was in 2010. Now, that might look like a sort of a slightly worrying statistic, but it's important to understand that to be able to put that into context. It doesn't necessarily mean that less emails are being opened or that less emails are being sent. But as a proportion of the traffic overall, because search is growing so quickly, email is taking a sort of a slightly smaller proportion of the internet pie. Now, the crucial thing, of course, with email is that it's really a sort of a brilliant way to engage your customers. So even though you're not going to be able to get the volume that you will from search, actually we've seen that email is a great way to engage your customers and can really help to drive those sort of crucial transactions. So just to sort of highlight that, what we've done, there's usually a big sort of push also on social, which we haven't really talked about very much so far, but will sort of feature a little bit later in the presentation. When we're looking at sort of where traffic goes from and to after visits to some of the key websites, so I've picked out here Twitter, Facebook, who are sort of the leading lights of social, Google, which is obviously the #1 search engine in the UK, and Hotmail, which is the #1 email service in the UK. When we look at where the traffic is going after visits to these websites, you'll see that traffic to content-based websites, so the likes of news and media sites, lifestyle sites, and entertainment sites, these are really the domain of the social networks. So Twitter, for example, sends 66% of all of its traffic to content-based websites, but by comparison, it sends relatively little traffic to transactional websites. So only 9% of its traffic, for example, from Twitter goes to the transactional sites, the retailers, business, and travel sites. Hotmail, as the sort of the champion of email, 37% of its traffic goes to content websites, but a much higher percentage than some of the social sites, so Twitter and Facebook. 20% of all of Hotmail's traffic goes to a transactional website. So as we say, even though the sort of the volume overall is perhaps lower than search, it's still sort of outperforming email, and is a great way for you to really sort of build those key transactional moments. Going back to search quickly, some of the things that we've seen, and we've touched on the sort of the post-Christmas sales. One of the things we've seen is that people are searching for sales much earlier than in the year, and it seems to be a sort of sliding scale as it getting earlier and earlier in the year. So this year we saw that searches for sales doubled at the end of December. And in fact, at that time, nearly 1% of all searches online contained the word either sale or sales for the week immediately after Christmas. However, that's sort of the beginning of the uplift of that traffic when people started to search more for sales happens in the week between the 17th and 24th of December. And so people are starting to promote their post-Christmas sales much, much earlier to accommodate for the fact that people are actually searching for when are the sales going to be, and what are the key items that they're going to be able to receive around the sales sort of moments when retailers put out their key discounts. And we said that we were going to talk a little bit about sort of the entertainment industry, and so entertaining traffic, what was last year's Christmas hit. Just as a sort of a little bit of fun, we had a look at the sort of the top three sort of Christmas specials, if you like, the Doctor Who Christmas special, the Sherlock special, and Downton Abbey. And when we had a look at the sort of the traffic that they were driving to iPlayer and ITV Player, we saw that Sherlock actually created a new record for BBC iPlayer. 4.3 million visits went to iPlayer the day after the Sherlock episode aired, and in fact that was much more, so a little bit more than the Doctor Who Christmas special, and actually quite significantly more than the Downton Abbey equivalent for ITV Player. So that was quite interesting. I don't know if you remember, but at the time there was a big thing about how Downton Abbey was the sort of the key program which people were actually watching on their TV sets at the time. For the sort of the Barb statistics showed that Downton Abbey was the sort of the overall winner. But what this is showing is that people are sort of diversifying their products, their channel watching, and they're starting to watch more sort of TV online, and in particular the iPlayer BBC products are doing particularly well. Now, why does this matter for the retail industry? As we saw in one of the earlier slides, we can see that actually traffic from the entertainment industry is growing, and if we have a look at some of the sort of the key retailers online over Christmas, you can see how much of their traffic was coming from entertainment. And I've just highlighted three here. Firstly, sort of game. 1 in 6 visits in December came from the entertainment industry. Ticketmaster, obviously, the UK's biggest online ticketing website, nearly 21% of all of its visits came from entertainment in December, and also LoveFilm. 15% of its traffic came from entertainment in December. And so these are just some of the sort of the highlights of how entertainment is perhaps not something you would necessarily think is a channel which you would want to invest in, or why would you need to know about what people are watching online. Is it Sherlock or is it Doctor Who? But actually these are increasingly important drivers of traffic. And so keeping ahead of what's going on online and what are the sort of the key events and key programs, this can have a huge effect on the amount of traffic which is being driven to your website. Then, of course, if you understand that this is what your customers are interested in, from an email perspective, being able to perhaps create some special subject header lines around the things which are interesting your customers, say Doctor Who, for example, is a really good way to encourage open rates and to get also those sort of crucial click-throughs. So that's a sort of a look at what's happened last Christmas, and of course one of the things that we know is sort of it's all obvious if it's in the past and if you know the answer. So how is that going to affect what's going to be going on this Christmas? One of the things that we've seen when we had a look last year is that there were key days for each of the channels when traffic was particularly prominent, driving visits to retail websites. So, for example, on the 1st of December, this was the biggest day overall for voucher sites driving traffic to retail websites. And again, that kind of makes sense if you think about the way that people, the organized shoppers, they want to get the discounts early to make sure that they can get that traffic and get people to come through to their website on a discount. Social and email are really big in the sort of the days just before Christmas, and that's a sort of a primary sort of product of the fact that the post-Christmas sales is a big sort of thing to be promoting then. And then search, we saw that that in particular Boxing Day was the biggest day for online visits overall, so people were searching a lot to go to various retail products on the 26th. And so what were the sort of the key stores, just taking a sort of a similar slant but rather looking from an industry perspective, or rather you know, what were the key sort of days for some of the big retailers last year. You can see that Mondays was a big day for John Lewis, for Debenhams, and also for Argos and Tesco, albeit they changed slightly depending on when they had a particular push in their online strategy. Next, because the post-Christmas sales is such a big and such a prominent thing for Next, you can see why they had a big spike in traffic on the 23rd as they were getting ready to push for their sort of Boxing Day and January sales. And this is a sort of a nice sort of thing that we can do is we can show sort of how different retailers rely on sort of slightly different email strategies. And so here what we've done is have a look at for those retailers, when were they getting most of their traffic from email. So you can see for Debenhams they have sort of regular spikes each week on Friday, which is a very strong indicator that Debenhams sends out its sort of email shots on a Friday. From a planning perspective, that means that you can either decide to go head-to-head with your key competitor. So let's say you were John Lewis. Would you want to also send out your emails on a Friday, or would you want to send out on a Thursday to sort of beat them to the punch? But then you can see the sort of the other side of that, where Next has sort of not been getting as much traffic as some of its competitors in the early bits of December, but then has a much stronger push in the sort of later days of December, and as I say, definitely in between that big push to get people prepared for the post-Christmas sales. So what are we going to do? How can we learn from these things to understand what's going to be happening for Christmas 2012? Well, first off, because of the way that the days fall this year, we think there's going to be some big year-on-year growth for Cyber Monday, because it's the first Monday of December is occurring earlier, so people are going to be, the organized shoppers will be getting ready to go even quicker. So Monday the 3rd of December is going to be a very big pre-Christmas shopping day, and in fact that'll be the biggest day before Boxing Day. We also think that Monday the 24th, so just before we get to the Christmas itself, is going to be bigger, and Christmas Day itself, as people start to get tired of their families, they do more shopping online and do some of that sort of very early sort of research ahead of the post-Christmas shopping. That's what they're going to be looking at. Where do we think there's going to be slightly flatter or maybe a bit of decline? Well, because Boxing Day is happening this year on a Wednesday and not a Monday, we think that it will be less significant than it was this year, but it's still going to be probably the biggest shopping day of the year for online retailers, and so definitely there's going to be a huge push to make sure because people still want to buy those accessories and stuff. Okay. Bearing in mind all of that stuff, what is it that what are the sort of key tips or key things to take away from that? Well, for search, we think that 44% of traffic is going to come from search in Christmas this year, and make sure that you're getting ready for those big Boxing Day pushes when people are going to be doing a lot of their shopping for sort of either buying the accessories or taking back gifts or spending Christmas money which they've got. 17th of December, make sure you get that date in the diary. That's the day when people are going to start searching for sales. And so definitely if you're the likes of sort of Next or Debenhams and sales is a big part of your campaign, that's definitely the time to start jumping on the search trends for when people are searching for sales. For email, the key message here really is to get people early. So people are 40% more likely to open emails in the morning than they are in the afternoon or in the evening. So sending out your emails early in the day is definitely a good way to capture them and to get them to open your emails and look at your content. And Cyber Monday is going to be absolutely massive. So we said it's going to be bigger this year than it was last year. So make sure that you're getting your sort of your pre-Cyber Monday emails sent out in November to get people ready for the big push. However, one of the other things that we've noticed through some email analysis is that people are actually more likely to spend more from emails sent in November than they are in December. So you can get those sort of those super early shoppers. People actually spend £129 more per transaction from a Christmas email which is deliberately sent in November rather than in December. And so that, again, that kind of ties in with the thing that we were saying about the closer we get to Christmas, the less people are likely to actually buy online and they're more likely to buy offline, although they'll still be doing their research online. And so if you want to grab your customers and make sure they're actually buying early Christmas presents, November is the key month to get ready for that. Finally, for social, 23rd of December is going to be the biggest day for when social really gets going, and that's a great time for you to promote your post-Christmas sales on Twitter and Facebook. And there's going to be 4 times more traffic going to Foursquare than Albert Square this year. So all the sort of geo-targeting and geolocation parts of social is when we're going to really get sort of quite exciting about that. Thank you very much for your time. We've got loads of information which is available on the Hitwise and Cheetahmail websites. If you've got a direct question which you want to ask me, please send me an email at james.murray@uk.experian.com, or of course you can follow us on Twitter at hitwise_UK, where we have loads of sort of data updates and bits and pieces like that. Thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.